This is Space Invaders. And practically everybody I knew with an Atari 2600 back in the day had Space Invaders. And actually, to this day, I think if you have an Atari 2600, you have Space Invaders. This was what I believe to be the very first killer app. So this was pretty much the very first game when it was released. People would actually go out and buy an Atari 2600 just to be able to play this game because it was so popular in the arcades. Now, as for me, I don't remember Space Invaders in the arcades at all. I mean, I kind of grew up when I started going to the arcades. It was already the late 80s and the 90s. So Space Invaders had already come and gone by the time I was going to arcades on my own. Now I really actually didn't see my own Space Invaders machine until maybe 4 years ago at Galloping Ghost. They have it there, and it's a fun game. But to be honest, I actually prefer the Atari 2600 version. And you know, that may be because it is the very first version of the game I've played. But it's also because of the many different game modes. As a kid, I never really changed the game modes. I really only liked playing the first game, and because it was the easiest, and the difficulty had to be set on B, and even to this day I prefer it on B, because I think in position A it makes your base, which is way too big. But as a kid, I didn't play this game that often, because when I did, I could never get the last ship, and I used to always panic when that ship would go flying across the screen, and I'd only get lucky a couple times I'd hit it, but mostly that would be my game. I'd never get past the first screen most of the time, just because that last ship and the noise it would create would just freeze me up, and I'd just either panic or just not be able to do anything. Thankfully, those days are over, and I like actually trying to hunt down that last ship now, because if you didn't know Space Invaders, you have the swarms of aliens going back and forth, shooting you and coming down, and the more you kill, the faster they go. But like I said, the Atari 2600 version had tons of different game versions, and I actually happen to have the manual right here. And lucky me, because there are 112 different game variations, and you wouldn't be 100% sure what they were unless you could look up the number of the game you were selecting in the manual. Now, what's funny is it's 112 different game versions. If you were to look at the box, I'm sure it would say, hey, there's 112 different games on it. And to me, this is a home port that's better than the arcade version, is because you have so many different modes you can play. So you've got basically 4 different variations, but then you've got all the different combinations of those variations, as well as throwing 1 and 2 player modes in there, which I never really played. You could play alternating, you could actually play at the same time. You could actually play it where one person controls the ship and the other player fires the same ship. Or they alternate, so like if you fire, you lose control, and the other player takes control of the ship, and then when they fire, they lose control of firing, and it keeps switching back and forth. So that's actually they were getting creative. I mean, that is something pretty interesting. You always got the shields. Either your shields are stationary or they're moving back and forth. And then you've got the invaders, where their firing either goes straight down or they can kind of zigzag down the screen. Or you could have it where the invaders they're firing and it's super fast, so that's actually pretty challenging. And one of my favorite modes is the invisible invaders, where you don't see them. You can only really see where their missiles are coming down. But if you do manage to hit them, they become temporarily visible. But it makes it really extremely challenging when that last ship is coming barreling down at you and you don't know where it is. On top of those 4 different game modes, you could play like almost any variation of that. So if you wanted to play where the shields were moving, the aliens were zigzagging their bombs down at you, and they were super fast, and they were invisible, there's a game mode for that. And that's where you get 112 different game modes. Now there's actually a hidden secret in the game that I did not know until maybe 4 to 6 years ago. I don't remember exactly when I found this out, but it wasn't until fairly recently. But normally when you play the game, you're only allowed to have one missile on the screen at once. However, if you have the power off and you hold the reset button down when you flip the power switch on, it starts you right back into the game, and you can reset it again if you want to. Or you could go, I think you can go to any game mode if you want to and do this, but it'll let you have 2 or 3 bullets on the screen at once, which actually makes the game a lot easier. But to be honest, I'd rather play it the traditional way with one missile on the screen at once. And that's all I can really say about Space Invaders. I mean, everybody's probably watching this already knows about Space Invaders. They already know about the Atari 2600 version of Space Invaders. But I had to make this video because it is in my collection, and it is one of my favorite Atari 2600 games. And it is, actually, I played a lot of different versions of Space Invaders, but for some reason, this Atari 2600 version is my favorite. Thanks for watching. See you all next time. Bye.